episode 6. Episode 6. But before we hit episode 6, because this is rare for Black Mirror. I mean, they did have the one episode where Shuri from Wakanda, she saw all the old tech from different episodes, but Black Mirror doesn't really do like continuation episodes. It's more like just one-offs. But this particular one, this is actually a part 2. So before we talk about before we get to the end, before we talk about the final episode of season 7, we're gonna first go back to part 1, which was the USS Callister. I believe that was season 5, if you want to go back and watch that. So basically what happened in the first episode, there were these two guys, Robert, who was the tech genius, and Walton, who was rich. And just as we know, usually rich people aren't really creative, and creative people are usually broke. So the two of them came together because Robert had created this video game, this virtual reality video game called Infinity. That was the name of the video game. It was a place where people, you can create an avatar for yourself. It was basically virtual reality. So you put the chip onto your head, you go into the virtual reality, and then while you're in the virtual reality, like, you have the avatar for yourself, and you can go around doing space missions, because basically he stole the idea off of Star Trek. Like, they called it something else in the show, but basically ripped off Star Trek. But the thing is, Robert, and this is the funny thing with Black Mirror, every time they have like a nerd, like a serious like tech nerd, he's always like geeky, and he's very like closed off, no social skills, and doesn't get any chicks, or or she's not really good with the men. And I'm just like, to the person that writes these episodes, when it comes to like the nerds and everything, is this like is this like a reflection on that person's actual life, or do they legitimately think that all nerds basically just don't have social lives? And I mean, it's because it's like, it is possible to have both, but I just the pattern was always just funny to me. But anyway, Robert, he's a loser, he don't get no chicks, and what he did was, although he was the creator of the video game, he has another version of the game that he keeps on a private server on his computer at his house. So he has a machine that allows him, because again, this is the future, so he has a machine that allows him, when he puts someone's DNA into the machine creates an avatar version of that person's DNA, like it recreates that person into the video game. That's how they get, the consciousness into the video game. The crazy thing is, when he takes the person's DNA and the machine creates a copy of that person and puts it into the video game, the copy has full recollection of its actual life in the real world. So if you were at the playground, like shooting basketball or whatever, and then Robert puts your DNA into this machine and a copy of yourself ends up in the machine, you're going to be like, how the hell did I get into this video game? I was just playing basketball like 2 seconds ago. And that's the part about it that's creepy to me. It's not like these are free willing thinking beings that are in the video game. They retain the memories of the person who they've been cloned after. So basically what he did, again, because he has no social skills and he's a loser, he took DNA from specific people at his job that did him wrong, or that he felt did him wrong, and he took their DNA, uploaded it at home on his private server, and he has them working as his crew, and he tortures them and treats them like shit and has his way with them. All I'm going to say is, regarding that, he's like the overlord of the spaceship. Like, he controls everything. He has all the power. And the clone copies that are on the ship, they remember their actual real person lives, but they're slaves to him because he can control the entire world. So they basically have to do whatever he says. And my whole thing is, if this man has the ability to basically control these copies and control these beings and do whatever it is that he wants to do to them, my whole thing is to put them on a spaceship and just have them like running around and like doing missions for him. I'm like, bro, you could have literally did anything, and we're just gonna leave it at that. Why are there dudes on the ship? So like, come on, man. But anyway, at the end of the day, the character that he portrays, because he puts himself in the game too, so like when he goes into the game, it's his actual avatar, like his consciousness controlling his avatar. Like, he's not a copy. So he's going in basically controlling all the copies. And it's just weird because it's like, although he has the power to do whatever he wants, he has them, like, none of the characters have a genitalia. Like certain things you would think a person wouldn't do, like he kisses them, but you're only allowed to use lips. Like, he tries to like make it as close to the actual Star Trek thing, as possible. But I'm just like, come on, bro, like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. But he treats them like shit. So what happens is, so now, like in the real world, there's a new girl who is Sophia Falcone, and I'm probably gonna call her Sophia a couple of times because I watched Black Mirror obviously before The Penguin came out, but I didn't know who this actress was. So then when I went back and I saw, like, the part 2 episode for season 7, I was like, oh shit, it's Sophia Falcone, and I was like, was she here the whole time? But it's very interesting. So she's a new person. Her name is Elena. She works at the company now. She goes and she talks to Robert because she's just like, hey, it's nice to meet the person who created the game. She's having conversation with him, and then he kind of has a thing for her. Later on, he finds out because of this black chick. She was just like, oh, do you have a thing for the boss? Or well, she didn't call him the boss, but she was like, do you have a thing for Robert? And then she was like, no. She's like, I just admire his work. It's strictly professional. And I guess he overheard that conversation. He felt some kind of way about it, like, bitch. And then he stole her DNA and he put her into, his personal server, collection where he can basically like control her and have her do whatever he wants. Now, the thing is, she's also a computer nerd. Like, she's a smart, like tech nerd. Like, she knows a lot about the interfaces and things as well. So she's pretty much on the same level as him as far as like things that she knows. So she was freaking out in the beginning because she was like, I was just at work. What happened? And then the crew had to explain the whole thing. Like, yeah, we're copies that basically have to bend to this man's will. His partner, Walton, he was also one of the copies, and he put Walton in the machine because obviously Walton treated him like shit, like talked down to him. So he basically, like, whenever he treated the crew like shit, he treated Walter like extra shit because, that's how he feels about him in the real world. He even did a thing where he cloned Walter's son, put his son into the game, and then shot him out into outer space and made Walton watch on the ship. So, like I said, it's basically like, because he doesn't have the balls to, to stand up for himself in the real world, he basically, like, tortures all of his bullies like in the game. But the thing is, Elena didn't really do anything to him. He just felt some kind of way because she said she just likes him from a professional standpoint. He just couldn't take that. And then the black dude brought him the wrong sandwich. I'm like, why is this black guy in here? But yeah, so that was basically it. So basically, Elena being the person, but Elena's character, she refused to accept, that they were going to be trapped there. And and then, like, in the real world, they were doing an update for the game that was supposed to come out on Christmas. So the new software patch was supposed to go live on Christmas. They were on a private server. They found the black hole where the patch was. So their plan was to lure Robert away from the ship so they can take the ship and fly into the update patch so they can be a part of the update patch and get off of his server. But at the same time, they told Elena that they said, listen, he still has our DNA. He said, all of us that are on this ship, all of our DNA is in his house. He keeps it in a refrigerator next to his personal computer. So even if we do escape, like into the server, he can just recreate us again using our DNA. So what they ended up doing was they found a way to get a message because they're connected to the internet. So I guess, like, they called the phone of Elena's actual, like, who she is in real life, like her real self. They contacted her real self. They went into her personal, like, folder account, and they brought up some racy photos of her that she sent to an ex-boyfriend. They sent those images to her phone, and they said, they were just like, listen, now mind you, this is like clone Elena talking to, like, the real version of herself. She was like, oh, if you don't do what we say, we're gonna post these pictures on the internet. And they told her to go to Robert's house because Robert's connected to the machine. They said to go to his house and basically steal our DNA so he can't reclone us. So they did the whole thing where she called a pizza guy. He got off the computer. He went to go get his pizza. And then she ran into his house. She snuck in through the window. She stole all of their DNA, and then she ran out of the house. And she even took his headpiece so he couldn't go back into the game right away. It took him some time. So this way they have enough time to escape into the update. So now the whole crew is flying into the update. They're trying to get themselves into the update patch. He comes back. He's just like, he tries to go back into the game. He puts the headpiece on. It's not working because they put a fake one there to keep him from going in. He goes into his closet. He gets a fresh one. He attaches it to his head. He goes into the game. So he realizes that he's been had. The crew took him for a ride, and the crew was on their way to the software patch. He tries to chase them. It doesn't work. And Walton, the clone version of Walton, basically sacrificed himself to make sure that the crew made it through the wormhole. So the entire crew makes it through the wormhole. Now they're a part of the update patch, and Robert is still stuck in his private server. Now, once the patch went through, they detected that his private server, was illegal and isn't supposed to be there, so it deleted his private server. All his information got deleted. And because he was still connected to the machine when it deleted the information from his private server, he died. And I don't understand how he died, because if you're connected to the private server, it's still his server, like it's his computer. So if you're connected to the private server and then everything gets deleted, he would just wake up. Like he would just wake up in the real world and be like, oh shit, because the game cut itself off, and then he just, like, I don't understand like how he died and how it fried his brain. I was like, that didn't make sense, because see, the thing about that now, because him getting deleted on his private server, because that fried his brain and he died, quote unquote, the whole thing about the DNA didn't make any sense. Like, the whole DNA thing was pointless, because they didn't need to steal the DNA, because he's dead now. He can't do anything about it anyway. I was just like, to make the DNA heist make more sense, he should have been able to just be released, as soon as that happened. And then he could have been the villain in the part 2 looking for them, because they're like somewhere in the video game. And that's pretty much what happened, because at the end, they were in the video game. They were trapped in the video game for all eternity. And now they're, instead of them being characters on a private server, they're a part of the video game now. So if you're somebody that you play the video game, you create your avatar, you go into the video game just to play around and do your thing, you can bump into these clone characters as you're in the video game. So now they're basically just floating around the video game as like free-willed characters. And that was how part 1 ended. And now let's move on to part 2. So now here we go. Black Mirror. Season 7, Episode 6, the USS Callister Infinity. Part 2 from the USS Callister. Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of Black Mirror, Season 7. And it's your boy Icon, as always, with a Netflix television review for you. And for some reason, the main character, the one who's Sophia Falcone, her name was Nanette Cole, and I don't know why I called her Elena this entire time. I guess she looked like an Elena to me, or I heard somebody say Elena, and I just associate that with a picture. But anyway, it's your boy Icon with another Netflix television review for you, going over the final episode for this season of Black Mirror. And before we get started, hit that notification bell, like it or subscribe. Check out my other videos. I mean, hitting the like button is super easy, so is the notification bell. And once we get those watch time hours up, we can definitely expand on this universe to infinity and beyond. No pun intended. So now, here we go. All right, so part 2 now. Because last we saw that the crew, they just escaped from the personal server. And when they got off of his Bob's, the guy has like 5 days. When they got off of Bob's personal server, they were actually in the game. But the problem now is, because they're literally in the game, they're subjected to the stuff that happens within the game, because in the game, you get to fight people, you get to kill other characters, you get to earn money so you can buy goods and services like VC coins in the game. And because they're actual like DNA characters that are in this game, like they're not virtual reality characters, they actually need this shit to survive. So they ended up going around the game and basically robbing people for their VC money. So they're just going around just jacking people, but they're jacking like actual players, like people who actually play the game and spent their money on the game. The USS Callister, they're just going around just robbing everybody, and they're using their credits so they can legitimately survive in that world. So now in the outside world, everybody's getting whiff of this. A reporter, he's doing a report on the death of Bob. He goes to Walton and tells him that, body cam footage, when they found, Robert's body, when they found his body, the body cam footage showed that he had a DNA cloner on his desk. And they said that people were reporting that random characters were just going around like robbing them of their like goods and services, like, from their currency within the game. And somebody said that they reported that when a character died, they saw like actual blood, and the game's not supposed to have blood. So he told them straight up, he was like, are there actual DNA clones inside this game? And then Walton got mad and he threw the guy out. They said that the black girl, well, I guess the actress that's playing the black girl, either she didn't want to do it or there was a scheduling conflict because she wasn't in the episode, but to get her off the show, they basically said that when they went on a mission to steal some credits, she died. And when she was the one whose blood got shown, which sparked the whole thing with the reporter and everybody looking into the whole situation. Now Nanette's actual human character, she's listening in on all this and all this reporting about. She even listened to the conversation that the reporter had with Walton because she was in his apartment that night. She was in Bob's apartment that night because she stole the DNA from from the original clones. So she just wanted to make sure her name wasn't wrapped up in any of this shit. But then she started putting two and two together, and then she went to Walton and she was like, dude, she said, I think I know what's going on with the clone situation. She said that, Robert had DNA. He had the DNA splicer. He had DNA from a lot of people, including your son, like in a freezer. And she's like, I think he put DNA clones in the game. And then Walter was like, well, that's illegal. So he's like, so we got to do something. So what ends up happening is now there was a moment where the clones on the ship, they found, they found this one character and they went to go run up on her so they can, try to get her currency. But they also came up with the idea that because Robert had them on a personal server in the beginning of the game, they said, well, because our lives are in danger and because we need all this VC money and because people are hunting us every time we come across somebody that's playing the game, they try to kill us. They were like, maybe we can come up with a thing where we can put ourselves on another private server and seal it off. But they said only Walter or Robert would have access to do that. And the clone Walton could do it, but he died, trying to, saving the crew when they went into the update. So, but they were just like, well, but if a piece of him still exists, then they'll be able to find him and bring him back, because since he's a DNA clone, he can grant them access to create a whole nother universe for them to go to so they can stop being hunted by all the other characters. So when they found him, they found Clone Walton. He respawned on some random planet and they went to go find him. Now, the real Walton and Nanette, they put themselves in the virtual reality game in Infinity so they can find the clones. They found the clones, everybody met, the clones found the Walton clone, and now everybody's on the ship. So Nanette's talking to Clone Lynette, and then she's just like, we're going to try to do what we can to save you guys. And then Walton, real Walton, he was just like, yeah, we're going to do what we can. He takes a gun and he tries to kill everybody. Because if they find out that there are like bio-digital clones in this game, he can lose his entire company and he can go to jail. So he wasn't trying to hear that. So he basically tried to murder everybody. He tried to murder them all. And then he got blasted, and then he respawned back into the real world, which is why I still understand why Robert, I don't understand how he died. You know what I'm saying? He should have just respawned back into back into the real world. Clone Lynette tells real Lynette, she's like, leave the game and go stop him before he deletes us once and for all. She respawns, she goes to Daily, and she's just like, dude, it was fucked up that you tried to kill them. She's like, technically, like, they're living beings. So then she ends up quitting the company. I don't see how that was going to protect them, but she quit the company. She grabbed the head devices to put them into the game like he couldn't get more, and then she walked out of the company. And I'm just like, that doesn't save them at all. But then real Walton was just like, oh, because the thing is, Walton was the money behind it. He actually doesn't know how the shit works. So he didn't even know how to get into the game. So he was like, I'll pay you whatever you want just to help me fix the problem. And then she was like, kiss my ass, and I'm walking away. And then she got hit by a car. So because she goes to the hospital now, well, she was laying on the floor, and then Walton walked up to her, took the devices out of her hand, and then told somebody to call the ambulance. She ends up going to the hospital, and now she's basically brain dead, and she's a vegetable. The clone crew called the real Nanette's cell phone. The nurse answered and said, you should come and say your goodbyes because she's not going to make it. So now they're fucked, and now they need to come up with something to do, to save their lives. Walton ends up going back into the game. He goes onto their ship, and he basically does an invite. So every single character that the clones robbed throughout the course of the entire game, he sent an invite to all those people with the spaceship's location so they could all find them and kill them for stealing their credits. So he's basically going to have the players of the game actually take care of the clones himself. And then he disappears and goes back to the real world. So now the whole crew is like, they're trying to run from these people because these people are trying to kill him. So in order for them to get away, they have to go to the Heart of Infinity. And the Heart of Infinity is basically the engine that runs the game. It's how the game produces new planets, new content, and they said that if they can get there, they have a chance of coming up with this alternate universe where they can put themselves and they can run from all the people trying to kill them. But then that's when Clone Walton said, the problem with the Heart of Infinity is there's a clone version of Robert in the Heart of Infinity. because he said back in the day the DNA cloning thing was something that he invested in for the for the Pinot industry, and he kept it. So he used that machine to make a digital clone of Robert, and he put that digital clone in the Heart of Infinity into the game. So this way, while the real Robert is building code and building things on the outside world for the game, the clone Robert is building things and infrastructure on the inside of the game. And that's crazy. I think that's crazy. So clone Nanette, she goes into the Heart of Infinity, and she goes and talks to clone Robert. She tells him the whole story. She's like, yo, you went crazy, you were lonely, you made copies of us, you tortured us. And then he was just like, oh, but I'm a good person, that's not me. He was like, what would drive me to do that? And she was like, look, that's what you did. But she was like, but now I'm asking for your help. She said, can you please create another universe for us to go to and seal it off, so this way, we don't have to be hunted down by all the people in the game. So he agrees to do it. But then he goes, but wouldn't you just rather just go back to the real world? And then she's like, what do you mean? So he shows her like, video cam footage of real Nanette in the hospital with brain damage. And he said, like, you have brain damage, so you're not going to make it. But because you're hooked up to the hospital machines, I can send your consciousness into your body in the hospital, and you can basically go back into your body, because the original you, like the real you, she ain't coming back. And I was like, well, damn. But then she's like, what about the crew? And then he's just like, well, once you leave the ship, because you were tethered to the ship, the crew would just instantly disappear. And it's like, we would save you, but then, like the rest of the crew would die. And then she was just like, oh, but that's not a good option. And then he's like, well, if I put all of you into a private universe, then the real you is basically going to die because you brain dead and you ain't going to make it. So he was like, so you got to choose. Do you want to go back into your body, or do you want to save the crew? She ended up saving the crew, which was a test, because he said on the bootleg Star Trek show, he said there was an episode where they made the captain choose between himself and the crew. He chose the crew, and then they revealed there was a third option, and then he put both discs together, and he said, well, we could do both. He said that we can put you back into your, we can put you back into your mind, into your real body, and then I can also put the crew on a separate server in outer space. So then she was just like, great, Bob, like, do that, like, I'd appreciate it so much. And then he goes, yeah, so I'm just going to do a quick, copy and paste, and then we're all set. And then she was like, don't you mean cut and paste? Because you have to, like, take us and put us, into these new places. And he was like, nah, he said it's basically like copy, and he said it's a copy and paste. He said they'll go to the universe, you'll go into your body. The version of you that remains here, the copy, will just remain here with me. And then he tried to justify. He was like, he's like, but don't worry. He said, although the copy is here with me, I'm going to treat her well. I won't do any funny stuff with her unless that's what she wants. And I was like, dude. I was like, first of all, nobody was thinking that. I'm like, he went there very quickly. He was just like, yeah, the copy girl will be here with me, and I won't touch her. And I was like, whoa. I was like, ooh, no. So, and then she got mad. She was like, no. She said, like, that's not right. Because she said, because of what you did before, because you got drunk with power, eventually you're going to like torture this poor girl. You're going to do bad things to this girl. And he got mad, and he was like, I'm not a bad person. And then, he basically, like what he did in the first episode, when he tried to suffocate her and, try to get her to bend to his will, he was pretty much doing the same thing that he did before, because now he's upset and he's lonely and he wants her to stay. So then she gets mad. She grabs an axe. She splits his wig in two, and then he gone. Now the problem is, because the clone Bob was the infrastructure of the entire Infinity, once you kill him, it's like a kill switch that just kills the entire game. And it's just, so now she's trying to, so then the disc that he had that was going to upload her into her own body fell on the floor. She's trying to find it. The crew is basically getting shot at by all these other characters that got called over. Real Walton is watching the whole thing live. And then right before the pink-haired, black girl with the strong-ass accent, like one of the random characters, before she blew up the Callister, as the USS Callister, and killed the crew, Clone Nanette was able to put the disc into the computer and activate it, and it sent all of them, which we thought it was going to send them into a private server. See, but the problem is, because she killed Bob, it basically hit a kill switch that destroyed the entire game and all of its existence and all of its backups and all of its data. So there is no private universe. So what happened was, instead of the crew going to a private universe and Elena going, see, I called her Elena again, and Nanette going into her original body, the entire crew, all the DNA clones just ended up in her body. Nanette is the primary. She's back in her body. She's the one controlling her body. But the entire crew is in her brain. It's in her head. They can see what she sees. They can talk to her. And I'm like, okay, now we're getting into like real Black Mirror territory. Like this is a real Black Mirror shit. Because the original Nanette is dead. She was replaced with the clone, which is a, you know, still her, but like a more confident version of her. But she also got like 4 other people living in her brain. And the entire servers got wiped clean. Walton went out of business. The company went out of business. It went belly up, and then he got arrested for having like bio-digital clones in the system to begin with. So they arrested him and like locked him up. And it was funny because when you were watching him getting arrested, if you look at the headlines at the bottom, all the headlines were things that had to do with previous episodes, like in Black Mirror. There was one headline that said something like "The Throngs 2 is about to be released," which was funny. And then there was also something about Hotel Reverie. I didn't get to see it, but I gotta zoom in on that later. But yeah, they were referencing like other things like in the season, which was cool. I said, but then Walton, like I said, he got locked up. You know, the game is gone now. Everybody's still in Nanette's brain. And then they told Nanette that it was time to watch The Real Housewives of Atlanta. And then she was like, no, but let's keep watching the news. And then they said that the deal that they made was as long as they close their eyes when she uses the bathroom, gets undressed, or goes on a Tinder date, in return, she'll let them, you know, watch, you know, like their TV shows, whatever. So she sat on the couch, you know, she let them watch their TV shows, and they were talking about like who's mad at who, because, you know, Housewives is some ghetto ass shit. And then it just ended. She hasn't figured out how to get them out of her head, but I mean, she really can't, because the real versions of these people still exist. Like, you know, the coffee guy is still the coffee guy. Like the blue chick is still, you know, like the receptionist. And they said that because she wasn't blue at the end of the first episode, but they said they had to turn her blue again because she had some sort of like weird disease. That's how they justified her being blue, and then the black girl not being there because she got shot. But that was how it ended. That was how this particular season of Black Mirror ended. And thank you for tuning in. So, I mean, overall, I'm going to say this is probably the most positive season of Black Mirror I've ever seen. Aside from Common People, which ended very tragically and very sadly, the rest of them actually weren't bad. I mean, the black girl, she took over the galaxy. I mean, the Throngs thing was a little crazy, but I don't know, like, they're just... The Common People episode felt like a real traditional Black Mirror episode. The Throngs one, yes, that seemed like it too. I mean, the thing with the USS Callister, this whole thing could have been like you could have did 6 episodes just based on the USS Callister, like, because that's how good like that episode was. But it didn't feel like a Black Mirror thing. It just felt like I was watching a really cool, you know, like TV series. But I mean, overall, for Black Mirror season 7, I say the yay. You know, like even the episode where the guy went into the pictures, you know, and they found out that the girl that he loved, you know, was a cheating whore. You know, like it had a lot of good episodes. It did have a lot of good episodes in it. But like I said, you know, I enjoyed it. But share your questions, comments, and concerns down below. Let me know what you thought about this particular season of Black Mirror. Let me know what your favorite episode was. I don't know, for me, if I had to pick a favorite episode, probably the USS Callister, like, because like I rated on the rewatchability factor, and Common People was too sad. I'm probably not gonna watch that again. The one with the girl with the reality thing, maybe I would watch that. The one with the picture thing, it was a nice episode, but it was too much crying. I can't. The Throngs one, I'm damn sure not watching that one again. Like I feel like I'm missing one here, but the USS, like even Hotel Reverie, I'm like Hotel Reverie was okay, but this I actually like the USS Callister one, so that would be my favorite season, my favorite episode by default. But share your questions. Let me know what you thought. What was your favorite episode, and let's talk about it. Check me out on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, where you can leave your questions, comments, concerns, always on YouTube. Because I know we got the Ironheart series that's coming out pretty soon. You know, Peacemaker comes out at the end of the year. Superman's coming out in July. So I'm going to do some anime reviews in the meantime. And I hope you guys continue to tune in for some more Red Eyes Entertainment as I bring you everything from the world of fandom, geekdom, you know, comic books, anime, and everything else in between. So that's it, guys. So for the final time until, I guess, season 8 of Black Mirror, take care. yeah, and also take care of your digital clones because they go through some shit. And until then, we're out this.